Okay, right. Now we need to define what is a happiness container, a suffering container, or more globally, a value container. What is that? Really, it's just anything. Anything that exists. May it be an event, an action. Basically, that's the two main forms it's going to take. Anything that happens, anything that takes place in the world, in reality, can be seen as a source of happiness or suffering. It can be seen as either of those or as nothing. What makes the difference between something that is a source of happiness or suffering or which is a source of nothing for you? Basically, just either if it contains happiness or suffering. If it contains things that are going to generate happiness or suffering. If it does not, then it's not going to. If it does, then it's going to. That's why we're going to call anything a happiness container or a suffering container. And basically, here is what it's going to be used for. For example, let's talk about the idea of rejecting you. For example, I'm a woman, you come talk to me, and I'm being mean with you. I'm being a bitch with you. If I'm doing that, it's because in some way, this is being a happiness container for me. Being mean with you, being a bitch with you, is a happiness container for me now. Otherwise, I would not do it. Any action we take, any decision we take, it's because when we analyze what's contained inside, we see that there is more happiness contained than suffering contained. We see that there is some form of happiness to gain, or at least this is a way to alleviate the suffering that we are having already, to make us less suffer. So there is a positive variation. If a girl is being a bitch with you, she's being mean, she rejects you. This is because this action of rejecting you in this way is being a happiness container for her in that moment. Now, if a woman decides to go home with you now, it's because she sees that it's a happiness container for her. It's as easy as that. Any decision we're going to take, anything that's going to happen in your dating life, that's basically all it's about. Do people perceive happiness contained inside this thing, this event, this action, no matter what it is? If they do, they're going to go for it. If they see enough suffering in it, they're going to run away from it. If she thinks that flirting and talking with you is going to contain suffering, or at least not enough happiness to balance the suffering that she perceives, then she's not gonna want to do it. She's not gonna do it. This is as easy as that. All the time, it works all the time. This is how everything works. So we're just going to explain the basic happiness and suffering containers that are going to be in everything. Everything is going to be a combination of those. And basically, instead of calling it a happiness container or a suffering container, because there is two words now, we're just going to call that a value container. Value basically is either happiness, either suffering. Basically, that's it. That's what we call value. Value for you is either happiness, either suffering. The only difference is that happiness is a positive value, suffering is a negative value. And that's it. We have one word for both of them. Value container. Right. Let's study this shit. Alright, let's do it. Basically, let's go back to what we've seen before. There is 6 channels through which we can communicate with the world, and through it you are conscious of anything. Let's just make a little drawing like this. It will be easy. There is like 3 channels up. This is supposed to be the same size. Up the 3 main channels. There is the view. This is an eye. Up the view. Here is the auditory. This is supposed to be an ear. You get sound from here. And this is, let's draw a body. Yeah, that's a body. Kinesthetic. Okay, right. And we can add the taste and the smell, but if you get the reasoning for those 3 ones, you can get it for anything else. It's like in mathematics. If we study the abstract rule, you can understand for anything. And if, let's say, in 1,000 years we have a new sense that develops, then you know how it works already. Right. So we have all of those. And around those channels through which we see the world, there is imaginary channels from which the thoughts, the mind happen. So from the view, there is now the same from the visual up. But this one is imaginary. Here we have the same up for the ear up, but this one is auditory. And here the same up for the body, but the same, this one is imaginary. Sorry, I said auditory. I think I wanted to say imaginary for here. Okay, this one is imaginary as well. This is like emotions, for example. And this is where thinking happens. Thinking happens in those channels, in the imaginary channels. This is where thinking happens. There is no thinking here. There is only raw information. This is purely neutral. Value only exists here on this channel, the imaginary one. Positive and negative values. Happiness, suffering. This is where it happens. Okay, right? And there is one more important thing as we saw. This is what we saw as the moments of consciousness. Okay? How many moments of consciousness do you have per unit of time? Let's say per second. Okay, right? We want this to go up because if this goes up, first we have more ability to squeeze the juice of the positive values, and we have more ability to not focus on the negative values. And at the end, we saw as well that the highest level of value, of happiness, actually it's neutral consciousness. Being conscious of things that are neutral, which have no judgment in it. So this is what's here in the basic sensory channel. When you're watching at a glass, if you only have the glass in your consciousness and you don't have those fucking imaginary thing coming on in your subliminal thoughts, that's what we call observing the divine. That's divine, it's art, it's above anything we can think of. Right. So basically, so we have visual, auditory, up, let's do it, kinesthetic, and in all of those up, let's not bother too much about what can be positive or negative inside. Let's keep it a bit intuitive. Let's not go too much in depth about it because it's a product about dating once again, so let's not go too much in depth about it. Let's just talk about the basic one. For example, for the visual, we have basically what is encoded in our genetics. Like you see, like what is beautiful has been encoded in your genetics when it comes to the imaginary channel. For example, you see a beautiful, what you think as a beautiful woman is going to generate this kind of thing, as long as you don't have competing elements appearing in your consciousness, for example, anxiety. If you see a beautiful woman but you get anxious, now that's a suffering container more than a happiness container, the view of this beautiful woman. But let's draw a line and study the things separately before we merge them together, right? Beautiful woman, for example. You see, let's just be intuitive about it. Auditory here is very interesting. We have things like, for example, a smooth, sensual voice, right? Okay? Why is that a way to sexualize a smooth, sensual voice? We're going to see that later. It's because it helps us to feel better. The kinesthetics of, for example, sexual arousal. Yeah, this one is huge in terms of positive value, in terms of happiness, sexual arousal. And those ones, they go together because smooth, sensual voice, it generates positive value, happiness in the auditory channel. What it does is that then it draws your consciousness, your attention to it. And so what it does is that it makes your moments of consciousness go up, right? And because of that, you can experience the sexual arousal better. Isn't that funny how it works? So actually, that's why a smooth, sensual voice is a way to sexualize, because it helps to feel better the sexual arousal. It helps to cut the bullshit, the negative elements, to get them out of consciousness. So for example, when we talked about the view of a beautiful woman, that's positive value. As long as you don't have competitive parasite thoughts in your head that make you anxious and now you can't feel, you can enjoy this positive value. Here is the same. It brings the parasite out of your consciousness. Good. When it comes to the things that brings a higher number of moments of consciousness per unit of time, we have actually any positive value in the sensory channels. Basically, any of those things, it can bring the moments of consciousness higher as long as it's not being competited with negative values. All right, makes sense? But let's see out of this what is there. We have things that are more structural. For example, we have the basic of influence when it comes to captivating. Threat. Yeah, what about threat? When something is threatening, when there is danger. If there is enough threat, if there is enough danger, boom! All your consciousness is drawn toward it. You have no time left. You have no moment of consciousness left to bother about your imaginary channels. Oh, you don't have time to bother about this shit. You have to save your life, right? So you're not gonna be conscious, or you're not gonna even have many subliminal thoughts about how things can go wrong, about negative values actually, about things that generate suffering that you judge as negative per se. You don't have time for this shit. Basically, suffering is just a dysfunction of the mind. Animals, they don't really suffer. They can feel bad, they can have negative things going on, but they are not going to suffer because they don't have time, or they don't really have this thing coming on over and over and over again in their consciousness. It doesn't happen, it's only for human beings. That's why we have to bother about things like enlightenment, whereas animals, they don't give a shit, and they don't need to give a shit about this because they don't have this dysfunction. This is a dysfunction for us. When we have a huge threat happening, danger, it makes us go back to the animal state where we don't have time to think about this shit. Suffering, we don't have time to suffer, right? So threat, it cuts out negatives. And in this sense, it makes, wait, I'm going to make like this. In this sense, it makes the positive higher because there is less negative. As long as it's threatening enough so that you don't have time to think about the negative. Or as long as maybe if you have still some time to think or to have subliminal thought about it, it has to not make you suffer too much. It has to not be too intense so that you can benefit from the threat which brings your attention, to the moment, to what's happening without bothering about the negative things. And basically, let's add a couple of things in the kinesthetic. We have like, for example, laughter, when you have fun. That's as well a positive value in the kinesthetic channel. As well like adrenaline, this feeling of adrenaline. Okay, adrenaline. As long as you are in the proper state that makes you enjoy adrenaline and not be anxious about it, then it can be very interesting. And this goes back to threat as well. It will depend on the state you're in. We're going to study this more in detail later when we're going to apply it to concrete case scenarios with women, right? Let's talk about cutting choice. We've seen it before. Cutting choice. You remember in the first part, we have like you remember the drawings we made, and we understood that when we are in a negative state, in a state of some form of suffering, predominantly, the more choice we have, the more we suffer. In the contrary, when we are in a happy state, the more choice we have, the more happiness we have, because it just creates things that gets happy, that gets positive. Everything that happens, that appears, is going to be positive. It's like if there is a polarity of positive, like a gravitational field of positive. Now if you put a new thing that is very negative, it's like a higher gravitational field. Now, boom, everything is drawn back to suffering. And in the same way, if now you have something very happy that happens, boom, you're drawn back to happiness. But if you have little things that happen, they are going to be drawn to the highest thing there is, may it be suffering or happiness. If you're in a suffering state, any choice, like any new choice that you may have or of decision to make, it brings more suffering elements in the mind. And in that case, when you're in a suffering state, cutting choice, it makes the suffering less. It makes you go more toward happiness because you have less suffering. Boom, you cut some part of the tree which is wrong, which is negative. Okay, cutting choice is going to be very important. And from all of those, okay, one last one would be like meditation. Bringing attention consciously into the meditation, into the sensory channel, the natural channel, right? That's basically like a threat, but in a conscious way. You do it for yourself. Boom. If you are not used to meditating, you can't do it. You just can't. It's a skill. Either you can, either you can't. You can't just be like, oh, I'm just going to focus on my sensory channel so I don't suffer. No, it's a skill. If it's not developed, we can't do it. Right? And now the most interesting why. This is what we call the flow state. Flow state. But what is the flow state? This is very famous if you have read the book of the psychologist, which is called Mihai Csikszentmihalyi, about it. Very famous book, very famous study. Right, what is the flow state? Remember about threats. Now think about it this way. Imagine that during this threat, upon this threat, you have some choices of action that you can see, which are going to deal with the threat and bring positive elements. Some other choices are going to not make it work, but some choices some actions you can do are going to bring happiness and are going to deal with the threat. Now what's happening? Instead of just being like overwhelming by the threat and running away, and then you don't suffer because your attention is just on running away, right? Or on just like you're just hypnotized. Instead of that, now among these threats that brings your attention here, you have a challenge. You can bring conscious attention to making the right choice, being creative, doing the right thing, so you can make your way through it and get toward the happiness, toward the positive values, right? So now here you have two reasons to do it, because you have the threat that makes you in the moment, in your sensory channel, you don't think about the bullshit, but moreover, you have your attention being drawn into the challenge. You have a challenge to do now, okay? This is the flow state, a challenge that you have enough probability of winning so that you don't choose to run away. You're more like, okay, let's do it this way, let's make it, right? But this is still challenging. There is still some form of threat. You can lose. There is a threat, right? So you're like, okay, this is serious, let's focus. Boom, boom, boom. Okay, so we have this flow state. And in the book of Mihai Csikszentmihalyi, the psychologist, basically it was a study of happiness. The experience was about tracking what people are doing in their lives and the moment where they are the most happy. And because of the way human beings handle their lives in our society in the 21st century, it happened to be the moment where they are in the flow state. This is not the only state from which we can draw happiness, but it happens to be the only one from which we can really rely on because of the way we actually live. If you go to a Buddhist temple, they don't need to rely on that. Or at least what's really happening is that they are always in the flow state, but they don't need the external world, the outside world, to generate this. They can generate from inside. They generate this challenge just by meditating. The meditation is the challenge. So they are always in the flow state. Great. Now. This is like the basic value containers, the basic form they take. Great. Now let's combine them and let's study the more common forms, the more practical forms of value containers. Right, yeah, sure. We have, for example, social interaction. Why do people love so much social interaction? Why? Why do some people love to talk? Some people don't like it? This is just a way to generate flow state. It generates a fucking flow state. That's what's going on. It's a game. It's a fucking game. Games. Why do we like game? Flow state. And if we combine a game with, for example, you play a video game with amazing landscapes and soundtracks, now you're combining flow state with the positive sensory channels. So this is even better. Social interaction can be the same. And this is why it can be extremely good for happiness to flirt with a woman. If you're a man, to just flirt with a woman, because this is like, for the game, there is the flow state of interaction, but upon this, there is the positive sensory channel. You're watching at a beautiful woman, you're having arousal in your kinesthetic, you can hear her voice, you can play with it. Damn, that's like a game. This is the same principles. Do you see how it works? And so, yeah, let's write them. Social interactions. Up. Sexual interaction. Up. Let's bring sex in it. Sex is part of it. That's like the highest level of sexual interaction. Yeah, and from there, here is where comes relationship. Why do we want relationship? Because basically, relationship is like a guarantee of having that. No, more in the other way. It's like a guarantee of having this again and again. Okay, right? You want a relationship with friends because you can benefit from those again and again. Okay, right? You want a relationship with a woman because you can benefit from having what this brings out to you as a happiness container. You have the sexual intercourse, you have the social part, which is inside as well. As we saw, flirting is a combination of the flow state of interaction and something more, sexual arousal. And upon that, there is the last layer, which is the ultimate one, which is ego. Ego. That's why you want relationship so much, actually. Why do you want so much relationship with a woman? It makes your ego go up. It feels good for the ego. That's the ultimate form. But here is an illusion. Once again, this is the dysfunction of the mind. We start to bite our own tail. This is stupid. Where does ego from? Ego is just like... Basically, this is just this. Like, we start to notice with age that there is some characteristic, some parameters that are going to generate the acquisition, the obtention, which is going to allow us to get those values up, all of those, right? Such as your personality, the way you look, the bonding you have already with other, your status, parameters like looks, personality, status, this kind of thing, your money, which allows to get those as well. Money allows to get other things, for example, food. It's a positive value of the taste channel. You have an amazing mansion with a swimming pool you're inside. Yeah, that's a lot of positive values on the visual channel. You have amazing thing, the sun, the swimming pool. Yeah, that's a lot of positive thing, actually. Now, it's not enough to be happy because of the dysfunction of the mind, which implies that if you have this mention after a couple of days, the parasite thought, they come back. And so you can't even enjoy the sensory positive value because you have the bullshit that comes back, which doesn't allow you to experience this. So at the end, the mention is not going to fix the happiness issue. We have to first fix the dysfunction of the mind, which is the process of enlightenment. But yeah, we're not bothered about it here. This is about dating. Let's focus on dating. Let's talk about enlightenment in another product maybe one day, but it's not going to be that important here. If you're enlightened, then yeah, dating is going to be so easy. Basically, if you're Buddha, you're not even going to want. You don't need it. But if you're Buddha or you wanna go talk to a woman, how easy is it going to be, really? But yeah, if you're enlightened, you're not going to take this product anyway. So let's come from the principle that you are not. Yeah. So we have everything. And relationship now. Here is funny. Relationship. It is built like it's a combination of those. Ego is a combination of all of those, right? But then what's interesting is that it goes the other way around. And this is where we start to get fucked up. Okay? Relationship. We have ego because ego. We see that if we have looks, personality, status, money, this kind of thing. Humor. Yeah, this is in personality. Humor. If we have this kind of things, this is going to generate the previous thing that we want. We see that. So we start to make our goal only about improving the ego because we see that it's what it's about. If we want to get the social interaction, the sexual interaction, the relationships, which are just containers of the things we've seen before. If we want to have those, we just have to work on improving the ego because this is what brings This is what brings the happiness. And so we start to live for the ego because we saw when we were kids that this is what brings the happiness. If you have this, you get the happiness. But actually, it was a mistake. We make a mistake. We made a mistake in the analysis of what's going on. And because we make that mistake, then we get into trouble. Now the shit happens because of that mistake. But still, that's what we do. So we live just for the ego. And so now, even relationship, why do you fall in love with a woman? You think you fall in love? Come on, this is bullshit. You don't fall in love. You get addicted to the impact it has on your ego. That's what's going on. You don't fall in love, it's bullshit. That's not love. That's not love. You just get addicted. We are in love with the feeling that it has on our ego. It's like if it brings some water on it. It's like, we've been after that for so long. And now, the ego is gratified. And then what happens is that at some point, we have some moments, like with your girlfriend, where, boom, you have very high moments of consciousness. You have no bullshit in your head. You're just in the moment. Now you really enjoy it for it in itself. So it reinforces the understanding that this is the shit, that this is what you have to go for, that this is the highest form of happiness container, which is right. Of course, this is pure, this is good. But as soon as you get out of it, now what happens? You're not with your girlfriend for a couple of days. You're not thinking about it back in terms of, I was so present, and you're like, damn, if I want more of it, let's improve the ego. You just reinforce again and again. And so when you are in this moment with your girlfriend, you're very present. That's a real state of love. You can go to real states of love, which are more like Buddhist things. This is a real love. But when for example, you're waiting for her text, you're like, oh fuck, I love her so much. No. Bullshit. Bull fucking shit. Let's be clear about this. This is not love. This is bullshit. Huge bullshit. It makes me angry, actually. Makes me fucking angry. This is pure bullshit. This is not love. Yeah, but that's what every relationship is about now. Every relationship is about this because we lost track of what we really are after. We get lost in the thinking, so we focus only on the causalities, but we can't even see anymore what it's pointing to. Do you see the dysfunction of the mind that's going on? Okay, we've talked about it enough now. Let's not focus too much on this kind of stuff. And let's move on to the rest. But so here, now we have the value containers. We have this that is laid down, value container. And here is what we see. Let's make a new drawing here. We have like the first, happiness. Okay. We want happiness, okay, right? That's what we want. In this sake, we have like three things. Either positive elements in the mind, okay? Either, so make this go up. Either make the negative elements go down. Either make the number of moments of consciousness per unit of time, so for example second, go up. Okay, so this is like the three fundamental happiness containers, positive value containers. They are the fundamental value containers that we have access to. From those, when we combine them, like we make lists of the things that create all of those, boom, this is new value containers, like happiness containers, that contain this. So those happiness containers are contained in the in the next value containers. For this, the same up, blah blah blah, the same, and then we start to combine those shit together, and we get to social interaction, activities, relationship, ego, blah blah blah, and this is the last value containers. Okay, and so what we see is that the more we go up the level of value containers, it's as if there is layer. This is like happiness is the layer 0. Those value containers, this is like the layer 1. Those value containers, this is like the layer 2. Those one, this is like the layer 3. Boom, 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 until the end. And each one is made out of the previous one. Do you see that? So actually, at the end, that's this is one of the 5 Buddhist main teachings, which is called emptiness. The empty nature of everything. Here it is applied to happiness, but it can be applied to anything. Anything that is empty. The substance, the concreteness of anything is only an illusion which happens when we go up the layers. When we go up the layers, we start to have the illusion that there is a substance. But when we zoom out and we watch at what's really going on, we see that this is all empty. This is emptiness built around emptiness, built around emptiness. And this is emptiness combined with other emptiness, which then creates huge emptiness. This is only empty bubbles, right? At the end of the day, all of this is empty. There is no concrete thing in happiness. Emptiness. Isn't that funny? In mathematics, this is the same. When we define the number, we do something very similar in formal mathematics, in advanced mathematics. Actually, we're not going to talk about it, but numbers are empty. There is no substance in the formal definitions of number. This is just empty sets, empty structures. Boom. Actually, if we want to explain this in a visual way, the number 0 is defined as an empty structure. This is how it's defined. The number 1 is defined as the structure, the set, that contains only one thing, 0, which is the empty structure. The number 2 is defined as the structure that contains 1 and 0, which are the structure that contains the empty structure and the empty structure. The number 3 is defined as a structure that contains 2, 1, and 0, etc. toward infinity. So each number is just defined as containing the previous numbers, which all are defined like this until 0, which is just the structure that contains nothing. So every number is empty. And anything we do in mathematics, anything we write, any concept we use is empty. And when we go up at the levels of comprehension, of understanding, now it looks like there is a substance. Yeah, the number 47, the number 3, it's real, it has substance. Now it's completely empty. But yeah, that's a Buddhist teaching. Reality is born out of emptiness. It's an illusion. Emptiness and something. Just because we go up the levels. That's kind of funny. Here it is the same. This is just value containers which contain other value containers, which contain other value containers, which contain other value containers. Happiness is just the value container, the primordial, the original value containers. But actually there's nothing inside as well, happiness. Just like we defined it before, there is no real substance in it. It's very illusory. It's like a ghost. But it feels very real, right? And so once we have this, we understand exactly what people are after. Why they want relationship, why they interact with you, why. And so now we can focus on the most interesting part of what value containers are going to help us to understand. As we talked before, for example, when she has to take a decision, for example, you approach a woman, she has to decide either she say to talk with you. That's a value container. Is it more positive or more negative for her? If there is more positive, and part of a positive value container is about anticipating the future, right? Even if now she sees only negative, but she thinks, oh, maybe in the future I'm going to get positive from this. This is part of the happiness that is contained here, right? That is part of it. It's part of the thinking. So if this is more of negative value, she will just leave. That's what's going on. Or at least she will suffer from the fact of keep talking with you. If this is positive, then she enjoys. And then she doesn't want to leave unless she has to. And then, yeah, it's like a parasite thing. Talk with you, flirt with you, like clearly, like be sexual with you. That's what it means. Bringing the sexual, bringing the sexuality of the interaction out. Okay, flirt with you, go home with you, for example. Go home with you. Give her number. Ask you question. Investing herself. Hey, do you see how interesting it gets? Investing herself in the interaction. Right. Now, like being bitchy, like being mean, rejecting you, getting you to chase someone, a woman, they love to do it. Getting you to chase just for the sake of it. Okay? If the idea of you chasing and her rejecting you and you keeping chasing, if this is a positive value container, then she will do it. She will make you chase and reject you again and again. It is your job to bend reality in a way that this does not become a positive value container for her, a happiness container. And at the highest level, it is your job to make this kind of thing negative value container for her. You have to get to some point optimally where if she does that, if she makes you chase and rejects you, it's going to create suffering in her. So she doesn't want to do it. She's like, then I don't want to do it. It creates suffering in me. And in the other way, being open with him, talking with him, being sexual with him, it brings a lot of happiness. So, of course, I'm going to be sexual with him. I'm going to go home with him. I'm going to go for a relationship with him. And never I'm going to be mean with him, be bitchy, reject him. Because this brings suffering. Damn. Easy, right? It makes sense. Isn't it very clear when we view all of this way? When we have this framework, when we see the interaction, the decision, every action through this understanding of viewing this as value containers, positive or negative, which means happiness or suffering, I was almost dying. It becomes very clear. It makes sense. Doesn't it make a lot of sense now? It makes a lot of sense, right? Let's study this shit. How does this work? How do we make this happen? And we are going to study this now in this book, in this product. Let's do it, guys. See you on the next video.